During the last few days of the Battle of the Trench, after Allah had already sent winds and angels to help the Muslims, the Prophet ﷺ said, "We now need someone to go over this trench to the side of the non-Muslims and get us information of what their next move will be." For this mission, the Prophet ﷺ chose HUDHAIFA ibn Yamman. HUDHAIFA bin Yamman is famously known by the nickname of Sahibul Sil, the one of secrets. His father, Al-Yaman, was a Meccan who committed a crime in Mecca way before Islam. Due to this, he was forced to leave Mecca, so he chose to move and settle in Medina, where he married a woman from the tribe of Banu al-Ashhad. Eventually, the restrictions were lifted from Al-Yaman, who then used to go back and forth between Mecca and Medina, spending most of his time in Medina. This is how HUDHAIFA bin Yaman was born in Mecca, but was brought up in Medina. HUDHAIFA ibn Yaman grew up in a Muslim household, learning his teachings of Islam from his mother and father, who were one of the first people to accept Islam in Medina. His father was a part of a delegation who went to the Prophet ﷺ in Mecca before Hijrah and announced their acceptance of Islam. HUDHAIFA bin Yaman became a Muslim without ever meeting the Prophet ﷺ, but he always longed to meet him. Eventually, he journeyed to Mecca to meet the Prophet ﷺ, and his first question to the Prophet was, "Am I a Muhajir or an Ansari, Ya Rasulullah?" To which the Prophet ﷺ replied, "If you wish, you may consider yourself among the Muhajirin, or if you wish, you may consider yourself one of the Ansar. Choose whichever is dearer to you." To this, HUDHAIFA ibn Yaman said, "Well, I am an Ansari, Ya Rasulullah." When the Prophet ﷺ migrated to Medina after Hijrah, HUDHAIFA radiallahu anhu became very close to him and participated in all military engagements with him, except the Battle of Badr. He explained that he was not able to participate in Badr because he and his father were outside of Medina during that time, and on their way back, they were intercepted by Abu Jahl, and he asked as to where they were going. They replied that they were going to meet the Prophet ﷺ, and so Abu Jahl did not allow them to go in fear that they would join forces against the Quraysh. The only way they were allowed to reach Medina was after the Quraysh took an oath from them that they would go only to meet the Prophet and not take part in the battle. When they reached Medina, they told the Prophet ﷺ what happened on the way to Medina, and the Prophet ﷺ said, "In that case, you shall not participate in this battle, and can take part in all other battles after this, because we are people who fulfill our promises." Both HUDHAIFA and his father participated in the Battle of Uhud, in which his father Al-Yaman was killed by a group of Muslims who did not recognize him during the battle. Once the Muslims realized, they were filled with remorse and pain, but HUDHAIFA ibn Yaman said to them, "May Allah forgive you, for He is the most merciful." The Prophet ﷺ wanted diyah, compensation, to be paid to HUDHAIFA for the death of his father, but he gave all that money to the Muslims as sadaqah and said, "O Allah, bear witness, I am given the money of this diyah, compensation, as sadaqah, for this was an error and a mistake." HUDHAIFA was not only forgiving and generous, but well known for being trustworthy and honest as well. All these great qualities of HUDHAIFA brought the Prophet ﷺ closer to him, so much so that the Prophet ﷺ chose him to be entrusted with the names of the 12 hypocrites in Medina, who continued to cause problems for the Prophet ﷺ and the Muslims by secretly plotting against them. Of course, there were many great and well-known Sahabah during the time who could be given these names, but the one quality of HUDHAIFA ibn Yaman that made him suitable for this trust was his ability to keep a secret regardless of being persistently questioned. He remained faithful throughout his life to his pledge to the Prophet ﷺ of not disclosing the names of the hypocrites, which is why we still do not know those names to this day. When the Prophet ﷺ passed away, the Khalifa would often come to him to try to have the names of the hypocrites disclosed, but they would be unsuccessful. After several unsuccessful tries of getting to know the names of the hypocrites, Umar radiallahu anhu once told HUDHAIFA, "I am only asking because I want to know if my name is on the list." To this, HUDHAIFA ibn Yaman replied, "No, your name is not on the list." Subhanallah, this was the taqwa and fear of Allah that the Sahaba had. Umar radiallahu anhu was a man that the Prophet ﷺ would say that shaitan leaves the path he walks down, but he fears that he is on the list. May Allah save us all from any characteristics of hypocrisy. Umar radiallahu anhu found a way to indirectly figure out the names of the hypocrites by observing the activity and life of HUDHAIFA ibn Yaman. When someone amongst the Muslims passed away, Umar radiallahu anhu would ask if HUDHAIFA attended the funeral prayer. If HUDHAIFA radiallahu anhu attended, Umar radiallahu anhu would perform the prayer. But if there was a case where HUDHAIFA radiallahu anhu was present and able to attend but he did not, Umar radiallahu anhu would become doubtful and refrain from performing that funeral prayer. During the last few days of the Battle of the Trench, after Allah had already sent winds and angels to help the Muslims, the Prophet ﷺ said, "We now need someone to go over this trench to the side of the non-Muslims and get us information of what their next move will be." For this mission, the Prophet ﷺ chose HUDHAIFA ibn Yaman and told him to go, but make sure they do not know I have sent you. HUDHAIFA ibn Yaman radiallahu anhu narrates this event, saying that he was tired and hungry from the long days of digging the trench and continuous fighting. But the Prophet ﷺ made a dua for him, saying, O Allah, protect him from in front and from behind, from his right and from his left, from above and from below. After this, he says he felt secure and his hunger and tiredness left him. He safely made his way to the side of the non-Muslims where the fire had been put out from the wind, and it was so dark that he was able to go and sit right next to Abu Sufyan and others without being seen. As soon as he reached, Abu Sufyan got up to address all his people and said, O people of the Quraysh, I am about to make a statement to you, which I fear would reach Muhammad. Therefore, let every man among you look and make sure who is sitting next to him. When HUDHAIFA ibn Yaman heard this, he immediately took the hand of the person next to him and asked him who he was, thus making sure that he is not questioned by anyone else. This was his intelligence and quick-wittedness, for which he was chosen for such a risky mission. Abu Sufyan went on to say, O people of Quraysh, by God, you are not in a safe and secure place. Our horses are not eating and our camels are dying. We are going to stay hungry because we have food, but no fire is staying lit in these strong winds for us to cook the food on. Our tents are being uprooted and offering no protection. Our people are getting sick. I think this is now over. I am now going to Mecca. Whoever wants to follow, they can come with me, because I myself am leaving. He got on his camel and left. HUDHAIFA radiallahu anhu came back to the Prophet ﷺ and told him that the other side has decided to leave and are going back to Mecca. So the Prophet ﷺ became very happy and praised Allah. HUDHAIFA radiallahu anhu would spend a lot of his time asking the Prophet ﷺ about the prophecies of the future and all the evil that would come in the future. It is narrated in Sahih al-Bukhari, HUDHAIFA bin Yaman said, the people used to ask Allah's Messenger ﷺ about goodness, but I used to ask him about evil. This is why most of the prophecies of Qiyamah and the trials and tribulations that are to come in this ummah are from the narrations of HUDHAIFA radiallahu anhu. He always warned people to struggle against evil with all their faculties, with their heart, hands and tongue. HUDHAIFA radiallahu anhu was made governor of important places like Kufa and Al-Madian in Iraq, where he later passed away and was buried. A great quote by HUDHAIFA radiallahu anhu that many of us can live by today is that the best of you is not he who divorces himself from the world to earn the life after, nor is the best from amongst you he who divorces himself from the life after to earn this world. But the best from amongst you is he who uses the world to earn the life after, so he has the best of both. May Allah enable us all to fight the evils of this current time and earn the goodness of both this world and the next. Aameen.